Let me start with a sample proposition. Talking others down doesn't make you rise. It's true in cabinet, in campaigns, in business. It's also spectacularly true on a rainy half-term afternoon in a struggling theme park. If your only sales pitch is that the rival ride is unsafe, families will stay home. That, I fear, is the strategic trap Rachel Reeves risks setting for herself on Nigel Farage. First, the setup. The Treasury is leaning hard on corporate leaders to talk up Britain before November's tax-raising budget, even circulating endorsements from tech titans. Microsoft's Brad Smith obligingly calls the UK a force for stability, while the company trails a record UK investment plan. On paper, that is good politics and good theatre, but cheerleading doesn't erase the scoreboard. Growth is soft, inflation is sticky, and gilt markets are jumpy. You cannot pep-talk your way past macro economics, and Reeves understands the bond market constraint and is now hunting for headroom to calm investors. Translation: more revenue from somewhere, because the cost of servicing debt bites before any ministerial rhetoric reaches the city. That is fiscally prudent but politically combustible. You can only promise to insulate the economy with prudence if you do not simultaneously convince voters that you are insulating yourself from their bills. Now to Farage. Reeves's Liverpool line was intentionally sharp. Reform as the single greatest threat to our way of life, and Farage in bed with Putin. It rallies Labour's base and tars a rival with foreign policy toxicity. It also carries a risk. If you define the next election as a morality tale, Labour as patriotic stability, Reform as reckless vandalism, then any visible slippage on growth, prices or public service delivery gives your antagonist the easiest counterpunch in politics. They talked you down, taxed you up, and nothing improved. Moral drama is a high wire if the numbers do not cooperate. So interrogate the numbers that actually shape household mood. CPI inflation was 3.8% in August, flat in July. That is down from the peaks, but not down enough for families who see food, energy and council tax pressing upwards. Meanwhile, business leaders report confidence sliding and the tax burden becoming a top pain point, with April's employer national insurance rise still biting. That cocktail breeds caution, not exuberance. If the budget adds further load without a palpable growth story, the electoral oxygen bleeds away from Labour's stability pitch and flows to Farage's grievance empire. And this is where theme parks become a forensic lens, not a frivolity. Consider 3 case studies. Flambards in Cornwall closed after almost 50 years, citing rising costs and falling footfall. The Victorian village was auctioned off. That is a cultural as well as a commercial loss. Oakwood in Wales shut its gates after nearly 4 decades. Generations grew up on those rides. They do not return once shuttered. Wicksteed, Britain's oldest mainland park, has been warning that free entry and community benefits are at risk as staff costs and employer national insurance climb. You cannot run a summer park on winter margins. Why do these places matter? Because they are micro-economies. They hire teenagers and semi-retirees. They buy from local suppliers. They animate bed and breakfasts and chip shops and anchor civic pride. When minimum wage uplifts and employer national insurance rises land on labour-intensive venues with weather risk and thin pricing power, something has to give. Opening days, maintenance, live shows, or ultimately the gate. Families then spend less, councils lose rate income, and a town gets a little greyer. That is not a theoretical Phillips curve, it is a Saturday afternoon. A government that asks CEOs to paint the roses red must also show it understands why the petals are browning. Reeves's team should swap slogans about talking Britain up for 4 very specific moves that would both blunt Farage and pass the theme park test. Firstly, targeted relief for place-based, labour-heavy attractions. Create a time-limited NIC's rebate or lower secondary threshold for seasonal employers who can demonstrate strong local multiplier effects. Tie it to apprenticeship training and off-season maintenance. If you must raise the broad take, carve out the civic commons that holds towns together. Doing nothing is how you breed reform votes in coastal and market town Britain. Secondly, an investment allowance. Create an investment allowance that actually reaches the mid-sized operator. The full expensing story is largely a big cap tale. Offer a capped, simple, fast-track allowance for safety upgrades, accessibility and decarbonisation kit for attractions and hospitality. Announce it with the same fanfare you gave Silicon Valley, but deliver it through councils and growth hubs. Families do not ride a data centre. Thirdly, provide a credible inflation path and utility smoothing. Small venues are whipsawed by regulated bills and wholesale spikes. Publish a 2-year glide path for standing charges and a micro-enterprise hedging scheme with guaranteed on-boarding. If prices are not falling quickly, at least make them predictable. Without that, your investment messaging sounds like a pep rally. And fourthly and finally, a grown-up growth narrative needs to be delivered, not a vibes campaign. Pick 3 supply-side reforms you can land within 12 months. Planning certainty for brownfield, faster grid connections and a serious skills compact with business. And over-deliver. The country will forgive tough taxes if the spade work is visible and the timelines are believable. They will not forgive being asked to clap while the lights flicker. And how does this intersect with Farage? He thrives on the charge that Westminster talks while towns decay. If Labour is heard as lecturing businesses to smile for the camera while simultaneously loading costs onto local employers, Reform's criticism writes itself. The antidote is not to outshout him, it's to make visible, local, practical things work. And when a theme park keeps its free entry, adds 2 opening days and hires 60 seasonal staff on fair wages because an NIC's rebate has been offered and targeted capital allowance tipped to the maths, the Farage ballroom loses air. He cannot easily rage against the people, he cannot easily rage against what people can ride. His balloon collapses, his balloon deflates, his little parade, his swagger in the ballroom is simply dismissed as a very bad paso doble. A word too on the corporate choreography. There is nothing wrong with curating quotes from Microsoft or JP Morgan, but if the public hears supercomputer while the kids lose the Wiki Bear summer show, you will not bank much gratitude. Pair every Tech World announcement with a household world proof point within a fortnight, and reopened Lido, restored bus route, an upgraded town substation. It's not corny to say that politics is won on the walk from the car park to the turnstile. Finally, tone. Reeves is right that institutions matter and that fiscal literacy is a public good. She is also right that markets punish fantasy. But telling voters that Farage is the abyss is not enough. You have to show that Labour is the footbridge. Right now, inflation is still above target, business confidence is sliding, sterling is twitchy, and the Treasury is preparing to collect more. If the message to business is smile or Farage wins, the public will hear threat, not leadership. If the message to the country is here is exactly how your town will feel better by Easter, they will hear government. Talk others down and you stay flat. Lift prices up and you rise. So to close where I began, the theme park test is unforgiving. If rides are closed, the show's cut. And the ticket's pricier, no amount of messaging saves the day. Fix the mechanics and the crowds do the messaging for you. Labour should want every family to leave saying, not that the Chancellor asked them to be positive, but she gave them reasons to be positive. That is how you beat Farage, not with a louder microphone, but with a better afternoon out.